is that when you contemplate how people reacted to J.D. Vance at first, you didn't hear commentators say J.D. Vance is a bad pick until it became really clear that people did not like him and that he had not been vetted at all. Like there was all this stuff that came out about J.D. Vance that people just hadn't paid that much attention to him because he was so new to politics in many respects. And, but nevertheless, you didn't have TV shows say like, he should have picked, I don't know, Kristi Noem or, to be honest, the pickings were pretty slim because everybody knew that Donald Trump would never pick anybody but a white guy. And it wasn't because he was trying to get diversity on the ticket. He picked a white guy because he knew that if he had, let's say, the most obvious person, right, would have been Nikki Haley. She was getting big numbers in the primary. Can you imagine like if there was even a moment where there was some type of analysis from, let's say, Joe Scarborough that's saying like Donald Trump should have picked Nikki Haley. It was an obvious choice. But of course, everybody knew that he wouldn't pick Nikki Haley because the Republican Party is not going to vote for a woman of color, regardless of the fact that she may or may not subscribe to the exact same policies. It was a big deal that they even let her in the convention. But here is Joe Scarborough, the guy who just the other day was basically saying that Jews like myself are anti-Semites, bemoaning this pick.
Well, exactly. Canada has to make the decision herself. And I will tell you, the candidate that I'm most comfortable with is a candidate that helps me win Pennsylvania in 2024. So let us hope, Jonathan Lemire, that those outside of Pittsburgh loves Tim Walz. So
pause
talk
it for
about
a second. Now, first off, let's be clear here. There is zero evidence in the academic research that a vice president can deliver a state. A. B. Bradley, get ready to Google Shapiro's favorability. I don't know where these lies come from. He won pretty handily against Doug Mastriano, who is an absolute lunatic. In fact, it was Mastriano that probably helped Fetterman win. Even though Fetterman was running against, a sort of like more mainstreamy type of Republican in Dr. Oz. Mastriano was so bad that he brought down everybody on that ticket. Now, I'm not saying that, Shapiro's a bad politician. He's obviously a good politician. But like the idea that there was some magic that Shapiro had about Pennsylvania is largely made up because at one point he did have a 60% favorability rating. But that's not what's happening now. But let's listen to Joe Scarborough completely lie to his audience.
Well, exactly. Canada has to make the decision herself. And I will tell you, the candidate that I'm most comfortable with is a candidate that helps me win Pennsylvania in 2024. So let us hope, Jonathan Lemire, that those outside of Pittsburgh loves Tim Walz. So talk about Walz.
Yeah,
let's talk about how the decision not made, the road not taken. Josh Shapiro, a guy that has approval ratings in the 60s in Pennsylvania, the must-win state.
Are the producers on strike at MSNBC? Why would they do this to Joe Scarborough, embarrass him like this? Google the approval ratings. This is from like a week ago, right?
July 25th. I posted.
Okay, 2 weeks ago. Maybe it's changed. A new poll shows about half of Pennsylvania's residents approve of Governor Josh Shapiro's job performance. Bradley, is 60% half?
I haven't taken a math course in a long time.
I think it's
don't
more.
believe so. I think 60% is more than half.
The new Emerson College polling found 49% of Pennsylvanians surveyed approved of Shapiro, while only 31% disapproved. 22% of Pennsylvania Republicans and 46% of independents approved of Shapiro's performance. Now, if 46% of independents, in other words, 54% of independents do not approve of Shapiro's performance there, I think the Democratic nominee is going to get all the Democratic votes. Now, maybe having an approval rating with 46% of the independents in Pennsylvania will get you over the top in Pennsylvania. But there were costs associated with him, not just his positions on protesters and his positions on Gaza and Israel, but you had 51 education organizations sign a letter on day one telling Harris, don't pick Shapiro. He's horrible for education. You had multiple scandals brewing. I don't know if they were, I don't know. There were liabilities. And so you have to cite, if you're Joe Scarborough, fake numbers on approval ratings to justify this. And this poll has been out for 2 weeks. He knew about it. Go ahead.
In the 60s in Pennsylvania, the must-win state for both campaigns, and also the one who was considered the front runner for a very long time. But then there was a backlash, and we heard backlash. There was a very public campaign against Josh Shapiro, and a really ugly whisper campaign against Josh Shapiro, and it's unfortunately that's something that is now hanging over this choice.
You can hear in the background Mika like choking on her drink because she knows he's lying. And I'll tell you what he's lying about. First off, he was never the front runner. There's been no reporting saying he's the front runner. He, Walz, Bashir
Kelly
were in the top three. And I guess, what's his face? Yeah. Mark Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
But there was no indication that Shapiro was the front runner. And the public campaign against him was called people saying, we don't want this guy's politics. And what's the whisper campaign? What was the whisper campaign?
Those unions were whispering about him.
Those teachers, those education organizations were whispering when they sent that letter.
Krasner was whispering.
Yeah, Larry
about him.
Krasner was whispering.
Buckets and Buckets claims that Fox poll was 62% 2 days ago. I would like to see Joe Scarborough cite the Fox News poll on his MSNBC program over the Emerson poll. That would be interesting. They desperately, I think the Republicans desperately wanted Shapiro because there was a significant portion of the Democratic Party that felt like he was not their guy. Here is here's Donnie Deutsch. This is just on Monday, the day before Josh Shapiro is out there. I mean, look, just the fact that Donnie Deutsch would have to go out there and make up these lies is reason enough as to why you would stay away from Shapiro. Never mind, the reporting suggests that Shapiro ended up after his interview saying, like, I'm not sure I want to be number two. This is so disgusting that Donnie Deutsch is going out there and claiming this stuff. And they are so pissed that Harris did not attempt to sort of like hippie punch, as it were, or attack the left. Just to spite them, even though there was obvious liabilities with Josh Shapiro. But this is disgusting. Donnie Deutsch can suck it.
Somehow suggesting that him being Jewish is a liability is just kind of, we report it, and it's disgusting and it's vulgar. It's reprehensible that you've got far, far, far left people putting out tropes out there about him being Jewish. And by the way, his stance on Israel is no different than any of the other vice presidential candidates. And I just wonder if the moderate end of the Democratic Party suggested that any other minority would not be okay to be running, everybody's hair would be on fire, and rightfully so.
Pause it for a second. First off, let's start with the last issue first. There were no people of color in the running for the vice presidential nominee. There were no women in the running for the vice presidential nominee. This was a total DEI pick. In fact, it was so taken for granted that no one even mentioned it. Never mind, the moderates wouldn't have been skewered. Give me a break. But there is no, and who are the far, far left that he's talking about? Where was the evidence of this anti-Semitism? It's so disgusting to make these claims because he's making them up. He's lying. It's him who's disgusting. There's no way that Jewish tropes. And to the extent that his position was different on Israel-Palestine, we know the lengths he went to villainize people who were protesting against Israel's genocide. That's what distinguished him. But no teachers wrote letters about Andy Bashir. No teaching organizations wrote letters about Tim Walz or even Mark Kelly. I mean, there's some labor that complained about Kelly. Where was that? Why aren't we hearing about, well, how
people hate astronauts?
How Kelly, yeah. Can you imagine if moderates somehow said that astronauts are not good? This is also I just cannot tell you. We'll get demonetized if I actually say the words I really want to say about Van Jones. Do we have that video? F this guy so much. Really, this is like sicko stuff. This is sicko stuff. First of all, I don't need another Gentile telling me about that I'm anti-Semitic because I didn't support Shapiro. But this guy's just, it's unbelievable.
Do you think it was a little risky, though, Van, that she didn't go with Shapiro to kind of lock down Pennsylvania? I mean, yes, David Challing was saying earlier, just because you pick him as your running mate doesn't mean you automatically win Pennsylvania. But I got to think it would have helped just a little bit.
Pause even the question. Pause the question for a second. I mean, look, you've just had your election expert on to say, there's really no evidence that he would help with Pennsylvania. Well, we really want to do this story. So I got to think that even though our expert says that there's no evidence he would help with Pennsylvania, I got to think that he would help Pennsylvania. No.
Win Pennsylvania. But I got to think it would have helped just a little bit.
Hey, listen, the conservatives, the right wing, the Republicans, they were chewing their fingernails down to the knuckle because they were afraid of a Josh Shapiro. They were afraid of a Mark Kelly. They're not as afraid of this new governor because they think they can define
There is absolutely, this is just absurd. They're afraid of the juggernaut that is Mark Kelly? Are you kidding me?
Vacuum.
Are you kidding me? They weren't afraid of Shapiro or Kelly. That's absurd.
I wanted them so badly.
Go ahead.
Mark Kelly. They're not as afraid of this new governor because they think they can define him. So here's the challenge you've got in this party. And people don't want to talk about it. We got to talk about it. On the one hand, you have a lot of young people who are concerned about Gaza. You have a lot of Muslims and Arabs and others. They have not felt seen by the Biden administration. You start hearing that genocide joke. That was building. And so those folks needed to have a candidate that they could feel comfortable with. This helps them in that regard. But you also have anti-Semitism that has gotten marbled into this party. You can be for the Palestinians without being an anti-Jewish bigot, but there are some anti-Jewish bigots out there. And there's some disquiet now, and there has to be. How much of what just happened is caving into some of these darker parts in the party? So that's going to have to get worked out. It's going to have to get talked through.
This guy is an a-hole. First of all, it's the idea that there is more anti-Semitism in the Democratic Party than the Republican Party, which is necessary for his calculation to make sense, is just total BS. This is Van Jones. I mean, I swear to God, it would, the idea that this guy's not doing speaking engagements for like a Bill Ackerman or whatever that guy's name is, or whatever it is. Like there's
opening
this
for Tony
guy,
Robbins.
Look, this is a tough conversation. We need to have it. Van Jones chases money in a way that I think is like it is faster than probably people who are setting records, the sprints and the Olympics. And look, it's just a hard conversation to have, but it's true. The guy has always been like, chasing cash, and you got to wonder, why did the Obama administration fire him?
Why does CNN keep having him back on?
It's just unbelievable.
I find it rather galling also, just because it also serves to show you, I think, how also either misinformed or just like incurious Van Jones is in these segments. Is like he doesn't refer to Walz by name. He calls him this new governor. Walz has been governor of Minnesota for 5 or 6 years now. What is he talking about?
He's been governor for 5 years. He was in Congress for another 12 before that. He has more political experience than any other single person in contention. More than Pritzker, more than Kelly, more than Shapiro, more than Whitmer.
Yep.
Although Whitmer wasn't really considered, and Bashir.
And somehow he is the new governor who doesn't need to be named despite being chosen as the nominee.
Such lunacy. Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.